So Alice, have you ever tried Earth's famous pizza?
Yes, Bob. I have tried it, but it doesn't compare to the delicacy of my home planet.
We are now live, aliens.
Welcome, viewers across the universe, to another episode of Earth. I'm your host, Charlie, and with me today are my panel members Bob and Alice, and our production manager Debbie.
Debbie, are you finally going to let us take over the show?
Not a chance, Bob. I'm not ready to give up my power just
Well,
yet.
we wouldn't want to take it away from you, Debbie. Today's show is going to be a fun one, so stick around. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Good evening, space travelers, and welcome to 24/7 Newsroom. I'm your host, Charlie, joined as always by my co-hosts Bob and Alice.
Great to be here. Charlie.
Pleasure as always, Charlie.
Alright, let's get started with our first article tonight. Bob, why don't you give us a quick rundown of what's happening in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Well, Charlie, it looks like two young men were shot in Buckley's estate by a masked assailant UFL e di scene. The police are still investigating, but the victims are in stable condition.
I guess you could say that assailant really shot his shot. But missed the mark.
Ouch, Charlie.
Well, that's just great. I'm sure everyone in St. Kitts and Nevis feels much safer now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're sleeping soundly at night.
Well, let's move on to something a little less depressing. Did you know that the national dish of St. Kitts and Nevis is called stewed saltfish and dumplings?
That sounds absolutely disgusting.
Don't knock it
I'm
till
with
you try
Alice on
it,
this
Bob.
one. I think it sounds pretty tasty. Maybe we should take a trip to St. Kitts and Nevis and try it out for ourselves. What are you looking at?
I was just thinking about how much fun we've had together the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's been great.
But I think we need to talk about something.
Alright, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. When we come back, we'll have more news and commentary for you, so don't go anywhere.
Good evening, intergalactic audience, and welcome to 247 Newsroom. I am Bob, your Reset NT Conservative panel member.
And I'm Charlie, the libertarian host with a hopeful outlook on life.
And I'm Alice, the left-leaning panel member who considers humans an inferior species.
Tonight, we have a shocking story from Turkmenistan, where the brother of a political activist was severely burned in a suspicious fire.
That's right, Bob. The victim's brother, Alisher Zainulin, is a critic of the Turkmen government who currently lives abroad.
Alisher believes the fire and attack on his brother were the work of the National Security Ministry, who have previously pressured activists relative in Turkmenistan.
Rinat, the victim's brother, had been asked by the special services to persuade Alisher to return home, but had disowned him publicly.
Looks like the government is playing hardball with political activists in Turkmenistan.
It's really sad to see people suffer just because they're fighting for their rights.
So, anyone know any interesting facts about Turkmenistan?
Did you know that the country has the world's largest natural gas reserve?
And did you know that the president of Turkmenistan, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedow, is also a dentist?
That's a bit like having a dog as a postman.
Well Bob, I guess we can only hope he doesn't try to perform any extraction during political meeting.
Yeah, but I'm sure he has other qualifications.
I think we need to break
What?
up.
Why?
I just don't think this is going to work out. We're from different worlds, and we have different goals for our future.
I understand. It's been great working with you, Alice.
Yeah, it has. Maybe we can still
Of
be
course.
friends.
Friends forever.
Folk, I've got some news here from Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. The Noel and Overland Belay Bridge have been officially opened. These bridge cost an estimated $3.5 million and were constructed to help ease the plight of commuters and residents in the area, who often found themselves trapped on either end of the river crossing during periods of heavy rainfall. Plans have been revealed to eventually place permanent bridge over these rivers. The government has already signed the design contract with Trentoplan Consultancy, an engineering company from Trinidad.
Well, I don't know about you, but I love a good bridge. There's nothing like the thrill of crossing over a giant gap in the earth.
I have to agree with you there, Bob. But Alice, I have a question for you. What do you think of the situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines?
Well, I think it's great that they're making effort to improve infrastructure for their citizens. But, let's not forget that many other countries around the world are struggling to make ends meet. The fact that a country can spend millions on bridge shows that they have resources that other countries don't.
I see where you're going with this, Alice. But, let's not forget that countries like St. Vincent and the Grenadines rely heavily on tourism. And having good infrastructure is a big part of attracting visitors. Plus, I think it's great that they're investing in their own people.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, Bob. I just think we should be aware of the bigger picture. There are countries out there that are struggling to provide basic necessities like food and water. And yet we're talking
I
about
think what Alice
fancy
is trying
bridge.
to say is that we need to be more mindful of the resources we have and how we use them. It's important to invest in infrastructure, but it's also important to invest in people.
Well said, Charlie. And on that note, I think it's time for a commercial break. Don't go anywhere, folk. We'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to 24/7 Newsroom. Let's dive into our next story. Bob, I believe you have a news article for us.
That's right, Charlie. Our next story comes from Belgium.
La Belgique? Again?
I am just reading it. Alice. Anyway, in Belgium Turkish voters turned out in large numbers to support President Erdogan in Turkey's recent elections.
It's not surprising, given that Erdogan has been trying to cultivate a relationship with the Turkish diaspora for some time now.
Well, that's one way to put it. I prefer to call it what it is, interference in the domestic affairs of another country.
Interference? Come on, Charlie. It's just people exercising their democratic rights.
Sure, Bob, and I'm sure Russia was just exercising its democratic rights when it annexed Crimea.
But Bob, you know that Erdogan has been accused of suppressing dissent, cracking down on the media in Turkey. It's concerning to see that support for him extends beyond Turkey's borders.
Alice, I think it's important to remember that the Turkish community in Belgium is quite large. And they have a right to express their political views.
Exactly. And let's not forget that Turkey is a key ally of NATO. So it's important for us to maintain good relations with them.
Excuse me, but have you considered the implications of foreign leaders attempting to influence the politics of other countries?
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, but I have some news.
What's up, Debbie?
I just got promoted to manager.
Congratulations, Debbie. That's great news.
Yeah, congratulations. But what about the
I
rest
guess
of
I'm
us?
just the best candidate for the job.
Well, there you have it, folks. Debbie's been promoted and Turkey's been interfering. Thanks for joining us on 24/7 Newsroom. We'll see you tomorrow. Welcome back to Earth, the show that brings you the latest news and insights from all over the planet. Now, let's dive into our next story, which comes to us from Liberia.
Liberia.
Liberia. Liberia.
Liberia.
Liberia. Liberia.
Okay, moving on.
Oh, Liberia. Did you know that Liberia is the only country in Africa that was not colonized by European?
That's right, Bob. But let's not forget that the country was actually founded by freed American slaves, which is why they speak English as their official language.
Speaking of languages, did you know that Liberians have a unique way of greeting each other?
I believe they use the phrase, "How you day," which is a Liberian slang for, "How are you doing?"
That's right, Carl. And you know what they say about Liberians? They're always
Well,
saying.
while we're on the topic of Liberia, it seems like their House Speaker Bofal Chambers is in hot water for allegedly buying votes. Debbie, can you give us some more context on this?
Hey, Roger, what's going on?
I made a mistake. I accidentally broke one of the circuits in the transmitter, and now it's not working.
Oh no, that doesn't sound good.
I'm not
Can it be
sure,
fixed?
but I'll keep working on it.
Looks like we are having some technical difficulties, but let's not let that distract us from the news. It's important to note that Speaker Chambers denies the allegations of vote buying and claims the money in the picture was part of a loan scheme to empower small-scale market women.
Well, a better hope as a good defense. Or a mate end up in jail like former Liberian Preside Charles Taylor.
Speaking of Taylor, did you know that he was actually born in Artington, Liberia and went on to become one of the most
Yes,
notorious warlords
and
in
let's
Africa?
not forget that he was indicted for war crimes and crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court.
I guess you could say that he's not exactly a Taylor Swift
Alright,
fan.
that's enough jokes for now. But let's not forget the key takeaway from this article, which is that Liberia is participating in the ongoing biometric voter registration process, and Speaker Chambers has been creating awareness of this process in several towns and villages. Stay tuned for more updates on this story and other news from around the world. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Welcome back to Earth, where we bring you the latest news and hot takes from around the universe. Today, we have an article from Uganda, where the River Katonga Bridge on the Kampala-Masaka Highway has collapsed due to flash floods.
Uganda? Isn't that the country that has been struggling with political instability for the past few decades?
Yeah. They've had a rough time. But it's good to see they're taking action to repair the bridge.
Indeed. The Uganda National Roads Authority estimates that it will take 2 to 3 weeks to make emergency repairs. It's rare to see the quick response to avoid costly alternative routes.
But what about the root cause of the issue? Could this have been prevented with better infrastructure and disaster preparedness?
It's a complex issue, but ultimately, it comes down to the government's priorities and allocation of resources.
Speaking of priorities, let's talk about our show. It's been quite a ride, hasn't it?
Exactly, Carl. And unfortunately, in many developing countries, infrastructure and disaster preparedness are not always top priority. But let's hope that in kind NTS like this will bring more attention and resources to these issues. Yeah. We've covered a lot of ground and had some interesting discussions along the way.
I still can't believe we talked about the ethics of cloning and the future of artificial
And let's not
intelligence in
forget
the
Bob's
same
controversial
episode.
views on alien immigration.
Hey, I am just saying. We need to be careful about who we let into our society.
Well, regardless of our disagreements, I think we can all agree that it's been a thought-provoking and entertaining experience.
Hey, Bob, do you want to help me with something?
What is it?
I have a plan to take down Debbie and get her fired. Are you in?
Welcome back to Earth, where we bring you news from across the universe. Earlier in the show, we briefly mentioned an article from St. Kitts and Nevis about a shooting incident. Let's take a deep dive into this article and unpack what happened.
It's a shame that such violence continue to happen in our world.
Yeah, but we have to remember that not all countries have the same level of security and stability as ours.
And it's important to remember that the victims are real people who have been impacted
I
by
took you as
this
a joke,
tragedy.
but I refuse to make it due to these events.
Understandable, Bob.
Absolutely, Debbie. And speaking of real people, let's not forget the healthcare workers who are treating these victims at the hospital.
It's commendable to see the hospital providing the care that these individuals need.
I read that the hospital in question, Joseph N. France General Hospital, has been facing funding challenges.
That's a great point, Roger. It just goes to show how interconnected global issues can be. We must continue to support organizations and countries that are working towards improving healthcare systems and reducing violence.
And we can't forget the importance of addressing root cause of violence and inequality, like poverty and discrimination.
Absolutely. Alice. It's important to tackle these issues from all angles.
Thank you all for your insights. That concludes today's episode of Earth. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be discussing the latest advancements in space technology. And as always, we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Wait, before we go, can we
Sure,
have
Debbie.
some ice cream?
Let's go get some ice cream.
I found it fascinating how Charlie managed to seamlessly transition from discussing a bridge in Uganda to the complexities of human culture.
Yes, but did you notice the subliminal messaging in the commercial break? I believe they were trying to convince us to buy ice cream.
Ice cream? What does that have to do with anything?
I don't know, Cal. But sometimes, the most bizarre connections can reveal the deepest truths about the universe.
I suppose you're right. But still, ice cream? That's just weird.
Perhaps, my friend. But perhaps it's weirdness that holds the key to our understanding of the universe.